function is something which takes an input and produces an output. Now, in the context of mathematics, we've just been doing some work on the quadratic function. So for instance, we had y equals x squared plus 3x. This is an example of a function. In order to get an output, which would be the y value, we need an input, which would be the x value. So we choose values for x, or are given values for x, and we plug them into the formula, and then we get an output. So for instance, if I was to take the value x equals 2, so y of 2, which is to say the value of y when x is 2 is 2 squared plus 3 times 2, 4 plus 6 equals 10. So the input value is 2, the output value is 10, and this is the function. Now, we are used to using the letter y, but in fact function notation often appears as f of x, and it's written like so: f bracket x, which we call f, or which we read as f of x, which is to say a function f, that's the name of the function, dependent on x. Now if we take this function here, we could rewrite this simply as f of x equals x squared plus 3x. But we could call the function anything, which is to say we can change this letter. We could call it g of x, we could call it h of x, but it's important to notice that what we have in this bracket here, which is called the variable, also appears here. So if I change this value from a letter to another letter, say, such as a, so our function was f of x equals x squared plus 3x. I could write this as f of a equals a squared plus 3a. So we've got a function f of x, and that's 2x squared plus 4x. And what we want to do is to work out f of 0, f of 1, and f of minus 2, which is to say we want to work out the value of which this produces when x has the value 0, 1 and minus 2. Now remember, if we change this part here, this letter, to another letter or a number, then we must make the same change here and here. So we're changing the x from the letter x to the number 0. We're going to replace this then with a 0 and this with a 0. So f of 0 is 2 lots of 0 squared plus 4 times 0. Now 0 squared is 0 times 2 is still 0, plus 4 times 0 gives us an overall value of 0. 2 times 1 squared. Now 1 squared, we have to be careful with this, we do this part first. So 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2, plus 4 equals 6. Now we're replacing x with the value minus 2. Now, minus 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times minus 2 is minus 8. So lo and behold, I've got 8 plus minus 8, which simplifies to 8 minus 8. And that gives us 0. a function is defined as g of x equals 3x plus 5. First thing we want to do is to calculate g of 4. Now that's nice and simple. What we're going to do is to replace, if we're replacing this with a 4, we have to replace this x with a 4 as well, and then evaluate. So we have 3 lots of 4 plus 5, which is 12 plus 5, and that equals 17. Second thing I want to do is to find an expression for g of t. Now, I can't evaluate this because we've changed x into another letter. When we change x to a number, we can evaluate. When I change x to another letter, then all I can do is change this x to the same letter. So we've got 3 lots of t plus 5. Now there is another calculation that we can do. For instance, if g of a equals 14, to find a. What it's saying is that, well, first of all, let's write down an expression for g of a. So I'm changing this x to an a, and I'm going to change this x to an a as well. So that's 3 lots of a plus 5. And we know that this g of a, which is 3a plus 5, equals 14. What we have here is a very simple equation that we can solve. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. 3a equals 9, divide by 3, and then a equals 9 over 3, which is 3. So we've got a function h of x, which is defined as minus 1 over 3x plus 2. And the first thing I want to do is to work out h of 9. So I'm going to replace this x with a 9. Now, we know that 1/3, so if I just take away the minus just now, 1/3 of 9 is 3, so minus 1/3 of 9 is minus 3. Minus 3 plus 2 is minus 1. Here is the second type of calculation that we can do with a function, where we're given the answer, so to speak, and asked to find the value that we're substituting in. So what we want to do is to find b. Now, so h of b, I'm replacing x with b, and this x with b, so that's minus 1/3 b plus 2, and we're told that h of b equals 4. Now, we saw in example 2 that we solve this as we normally would to an equation. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. That leaves me with minus 1/3 b equals, well, 4 take away 2 is 2. How do I get rid of a dividing 3? I multiply both sides by 3. So I have minus b equals 2 times 3 is 6. And all I need to do now is multiply both sides by minus 1, or divide both sides by minus 1, which means that b equals minus 6.